All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January All-In Conversations on building resiliency in teams. I'm Mindy.
I'm Aida.
And we work for CHADS Coalition. If you've not been on one of our All-In Conversations before, I'm just going to explain for a second what CHADS is and what our organization does. CHADS Coalition started in 2005. Our bosses, Marion and Larry, lost their son, whose name was Chad, to suicide in 2004, and they started this organization in his memory to help other students, kids, learn about mental health and suicide awareness. We have 3 sections within the CHADS organization. We are both part of what's called our SOS, Signs of Suicide division. We go into schools and we talk to students about suicide awareness and prevention. We talk about mental health and how to, where to look for help and all those kinds of things. And then we also have a division called our SO team, which is social emotional well-being. That team offers mentoring. So we have mentors in 65 different schools, and they do one-on-one work with students, doing social emotional lessons. And then we also have our family support group division, which does actual therapeutic meetings. We have some 2 or 3 clinicians embedded within schools that work with students. We also have some that work out of our office and do therapy as well. So that's kind of a little bit about CHADS Coalition, if you weren't familiar with it before. If you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. We'll leave some time at the end as well for questions that might come up. So if we are ready to go, we'll get started.
Now they can hear me.
Okay.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing that we're going to do is to define resiliency. The word resiliency in this regard means the ability to withstand, adapt to, and recover from adversity and stress. The thing I think it's important to remember about resiliency, it's not avoiding. It's not avoiding disappointment. It's not avoiding failure. It's not avoiding sadness. It's how you handle those situations and how you bounce back and what this next step is that makes someone resilient. We talk to our students about this too. The fact that, life throws a lot at us all the time, and you have to have ways to deal with those situations in order to do life. And so I think that in talking about this, it's important to know that our job as parents is not to shield our kids from all these things, no matter how much we want to do that. I think as parents, I have adult children, Aida has little guys, and we want to fix things for them, and we want to make sure they don't encounter disappointment, failure, or sadness. But in reality, it's those situations that help them to grow and to learn and to become productive adults. So
yeah, I have been having such a hard time with my 2. Mine are 5 and 3, and it's always like everything's a big deal, and so I kind of try to talk to them about it, like, is this really a big deal, to help them learn that, hey, sometimes you are going to feel sad, sometimes you're going to feel angry, so how do you get past those emotions, to help build that resiliency.
Okay, so excuse me, some traits of a resilient teen, some things to think about and look for in your child. Being optimistic. It's hard if somebody is really pessimistic all the time, because it's sort of that glass half empty, half full um, uh, analogy. If kids are able to look to see the optimism in situations and see that things can get better, and that things aren't always going to be in a bad situation, they're not always going to feel really overwhelming and upsetting, but being optimistic about it and looking to the future is really helpful. Also, gratitude is really helpful. I think sometimes I have talked to my own kids in the past about the fact that, like, we need to, this might be bad, upsetting, whatever, you didn't make the team, whatever it is, but let's talk about the good things that are going on for you. Let's concentrate on the things that we're thankful for, the things that we're able to do, that we're able to have, all that kind of stuff. Also, I think having a strong moral compass is really important for a resilient teen. Uh, Gratitude also goes along with desire to help others. We often find that teens, students that we work with, um, if they see the benefit in helping others, it helps them to look at their own life a little bit differently, as well as a sense of purpose. Having something that they can really attach to in terms of what's their why, what's their purpose in doing different activities, getting involved in different situations. Also, humor is a big part of it, because I think a lot of times if we can learn to laugh at ourselves and laugh at the situation and find the humor in things, it sort of lessens the stress of the situation and makes it a lot more tolerable. Having positive role models, whether that be parents, whether that be older siblings, whether that be teachers, the adults around them, if they model good resiliency, problem solving, being optimistic in a situation, that goes a long way for students. I think about the fact that someone once said to me, "Your kids are always watching you." Whether you're actually teaching them by talking a lesson, but a lot of times they are watching. If you're melting down about something that happened and unable to see a way to problem solve a situation or to move past disappointment, kids will take those cues and they will think that that is okay for them too.
I think what I was gonna say is I think what plays a lot in that is I think that as parents we also try to shield our kids from showing them that we are feeling those emotions, and I think that's okay. That's okay to show that your kids that you are feeling sad, that you are feeling angry, but it's also gonna show how do you overcome those situations, how do you overcome those feelings, because I think that sometimes. I'm from Bosnia, and so I saw my parents didn't show emotions, they didn't talk about that stuff. Like that was just not something they did. But in reality, we're all human. We all feel those emotions. Everybody gets sad. Everybody gets angry. And so I think just showing them how you handle those. So yeah, you might have a breakdown, but how do you get past that, right? And it's not necessarily that you need to have a breakdown every single day, right? But if you are showing them how you get past that, how you overcome those things, that's going to be a really, really important thing for them to still see.
Great, thank you. Also, social connection. A big part of, we find a big part in building healthy teens in any regard is having social connection, being involved in activities that they enjoy, that they are choosing. That they want to be involved in. I had a conversation with one of our colleagues earlier today, and she was talking about the fact that her son is being recruited at age 7 for a flag football team, and he really doesn't want to play. And so she had to tell this dad that keeps calling her, like, hey, this is not what my son's interested in. So letting them be interested in the things that they choose to be interested in is helpful, and also helping them to make social connections, but also not pushing them It's sort of a fine line. There are kids who are shy and introverted and uncomfortable in social situations. So you want to sort of push them a bit, but also know when they're giving you the cues that it's uncomfortable for them. Also having supportive family relationships and a willingness to confront and grow from fears. That we find that, again, life throws things at you all the time. And so it's how you grow from that situation. When I worked as a school counselor prior to coming to CHADS, and I used to, if a kid would get in trouble about something that they did, or they had certain behaviors that they asked me to talk to a student about, my question to them after discussing it always was, what'd you learn from this? What are you going to do differently the next time? And so I think that that's an important conversation to have.
I did want to just say something about the desire to help others. Like Mindy said, we go into schools and we do these presentations on suicide. We teach kids what are those warning signs. And I will tell you, it's so disheartening to me when I go into these schools and kids are like, well, why is that my business? Why should I tell? Or things like that. And I'm just like, you should want to help somebody. If somebody's going through something, you should want to help them. So I think that is definitely something that we need to talk to our kids more about, because I feel like there's just been some type of disconnect, and I don't think it's necessarily like each certain person's family members. I think that just like across America, I think with kids, I don't know if it's social media, I don't know if it's phones, I don't know what it is, but I think there is some type of barrier that's preventing these kids from showing empathy and from caring about other people. So I think that we as parents can definitely try to work on that with our kids at home as much as we can. Or if you are like a provider of any sort, if you work at a school or whatever, do those things with your kids at schools and in your practice and stuff like that as well.
All right, so why is it important to have resiliency? The bottom line is resiliency and strong mental health go together. Kids that are resilient are able to heal more quickly to situations involving trauma, mental health situations like depression or anxiety, and also failure. I think that we sometimes in our society today don't want to see our kids fail. And sometimes we feel like it's a reflection on us as parents if they don't get picked for that team, if they don't get accepted into certain colleges or things like that. And I think that it's really important to know that that's part of life. And I hate to say the more it happens, the better they'll get at it, but that is the reality. And so the kids that we see that aren't resilient are the ones that we see falling into deep depressions, getting involved in drugs and alcohol, possibly having suicidal thinking. So it's really important to work on that. Resilience is a source of positive emotions, overall well-being, and self-compassion. We talk when we go into classrooms with students a lot about coping strategies, and we talk about what are negative coping strategies. And the kids know, they can tell you, drugs, alcohol, shoplifting, self-harm, all those kinds of things. We see kids who are resilient engaging in healthy coping strategies. And we talk about, we give kids examples of what those are when we go into the classroom, using deep breathing, listening to music, reaching out to a friend or family member. Kids tell me all kinds of things: drawing, cooking, baking, knitting, physical exercise. And so kids who have healthy coping strategies also seem to have stronger mental health and also are much more resilient and able to move past, or at least rationalize and think clearly about situations.
And again, this is going to be something that we as parents can definitely mirror for our kids. My son just recently learned how to play tic-tac-toe. And so he'll play it, but he'll tell you where to put your X, because he's always he'll tell you where to put your X. And if you don't put your X there, he gets mad. And if he loses, he gets mad. I'm like, it's okay to lose. Like, you're just not going to win all the time. That's okay. And so we're working through that again, right? That's that age. But I mean, just showing kids, you know, it is okay to lose. It is okay to feel sometimes those things happen, but what can we learn from that? And then definitely mirroring them those coping skills that maybe you are doing. You know, let's go have some quiet time. Let's go have a spa day. Let's go outside and go for a walk or run around or whatever it is. When you mirror those things, kids are going to see that. Kids are going to see, okay, well, this is how my parent is coping with their sadness or their anger. Maybe I can try it too.
So this part is the C's of resilience. So competence, being able to have good strategies and being able to rationalize situations, having confidence, having good self-esteem and feeling good about yourself, and knowing that you don't have to win every game or get straight A's or whatever, and you're still a good person and you still have a lot of great things going for you. Connection, again, is social connection, being connected to not only people, but activities, building that network of support. We do find that students who are engaged in activities, whether they be in the school building or outside of the school building, seem to have better self-esteem and also better mental health. Having good character, having integrity. We always used to say to our students, having good character is doing the right thing even when no one's watching. Contribution has to do with helping others. Coping, having good coping strategies, and then control. One of the things that is important for kids of all ages is having a sense of control, feeling like they have some control over a situation. So it goes back to that old thinking when you're little kids that they need some control, and that helps to prevent meltdowns. So saying to your kid, you know, laying out 2 outfits and letting them pick which one they want to do. Is, you know, giving them just that little bit of self-control, sense of control. Okay, a couple tips for parents, which I always like to, when I go to seminars, I always like to take away some practical tips. So just some things that that might be helpful. One of the things is you want to help kids to express their emotions, and you want to give them the space and the time to be able to do that. When I go in to talk to students, we do a presentation in 5th grade about emotion management. And I always say to the kids, is it okay to have feelings? Is it okay to have emotions? And of course, the answer is yes. We're sad, we're frustrated, we're angry, we're excited, we're whatever. And that's okay. It's how we handle those feelings and those emotions that make the difference. So be open to talking about feelings with your child, and tell them it's okay to feel sad. Sometimes we're going to feel sad, and it's okay to feel sad, but let's talk about how we can deal with the situation and move past the situation or feel better about what's happening.
And it's okay to also admit that, hey, I didn't handle that situation in the best way. Because then that can help them also learn that, hey, sometimes we don't handle the situation the best way, but we can still learn from it and figure out, okay, what can we do different this time? You know, we as parents, as adults, always need to own up to our mistakes, because I think that helps kids understand that they can make those mistakes as well.
Also, listen carefully. Ask questions with no judgment. The second that a kid feels judged, they're shutting down. That has always been my experience. So even though it's difficult, make sure that you are giving them space to just talk without responding, without trying to fix the problem, without judging. Maybe they have made a bad decision. Listen, I always say, even the best of kids sometimes makes a bad choice. But even though we're like thinking to ourselves, why on earth did you do that, right? Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you're not saying that to your child. The quickest way, as I said, to shut them down from talking to you is them feeling like they're being judged. So make sure that you are not doing that. Also be empathetic, and don't try to fix problems or dismiss their feelings. Sometimes I'll go into classrooms and students will say to me, my mom doesn't believe how sad I am. She always keeps just telling me I'm fine. So you want to make sure that the bottom line is, even though you might think a kid shouldn't be upset about a situation or mad or sad or whatever, if they are, those are their feelings. Even if it seems like a no big deal situation to you, it is to them. So make sure that you're honoring those feelings and not like blowing them off and try to dismiss them. And then also, if you try to fix every problem that your kid has, they're never going to learn how to do that on their own. So I am the queen of trying to fix things, and because I worked as a school counselor, and so a lot of times that was sort of my role. So now I've developed a system with my 23-year-old daughter that if she calls and she's upset about something, this is how I start the conversation. I need to know, am I listening or am I giving suggestions? Because then I kind of know how to listen in that, conversation. And I am going to know what's expected of me at the end. Am I going to go, okay, I'm really sorry that you're feeling that way? Or am I going to jump in with not trying to fix it, but give suggestions on what she might do next?
And tell my husband that all the time.
Yeah. Maybe ask why they're feeling that way. For our younger kids, a lot of times they have difficulty understanding why they're feeling a certain way or what's really going on. So maybe asking some probing questions, some open-ended questions to kind of understand that. Also helping them to develop coping strategies, doing things as a family. As Aida said, maybe your child is really frustrated about some math homework. And so you say, you know what, we're going to take a break and we're going to go outside and walk around the block a couple times. Or whatever it is, maybe like, let's take a little break and have a snack. Maybe your, blood sugar is a little low, whatever it is. Sometimes kids are great at their own coping strategies. Sometimes you really need to coach them to obtain those strategies. I always tell students when we go into classrooms, you need to practice them too, and figure out what strategies work for you in what situations.
Yeah, I was telling the kids today, I was like, if I keep pouring water in my cup and my cup is overfilling, is it going to be easier for me at that moment when my cup is overfilling to do those coping strategies if I've never practiced them before? And they're like, no. I'm like, no. If my cup is only half full and I'm doing those coping strategies, I'm teaching myself how do I take water out of my cup so that it doesn't overflow. But if it ends up to that point where it overflows and maybe I am having a panic attack, I'm going to know, hey, you know what? In the past, when I felt anxious or when I felt super upset about something, I've done these things and they've helped me calm down. So let me try those things.
Right. The other thing is, in helping kids to develop a resiliency, you also want to remind them of their strengths. Identify them. Sometimes kids, like, you'll say to them, what are your strengths? And they have no idea. They can't even tell you. Even though I could tell a kid that, they can't see it in themselves. And then build on those strengths. Show them and tell them how to use those strengths in order to solve problems. A lot of these kids sometimes feel helpless if we don't allow them the time and the space to solve problems. So they need to see, what am I good at that I could use in this situation to move past it or to cope with it. And then healthy habits, a couple are listed here: physical activity, yoga, meditation, eating healthy, and getting outside. And we'll talk a little bit more about some healthy habits on the next screen.
So these are just some healthy habits that can help you to help your teen build resiliency, establish a healthy eating routine, incorporate physical activity into your daily life, encourage healthy hygiene practices, establish a good sleep routine, learn positive ways to manage stress, stay away from alcohol and smoking, and avoid spending hours online.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and I think you're going to get to this, sleep for kids is the one that I think we skimp on the most, especially teenagers. I read more and more articles about the importance of sleep. So it's really important to, it becomes more difficult to regulate that as your kid gets older. Are you going to cover that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We'll
get
go more into that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So when we talk about eating healthy, you want to make sure your kids having breakfast every day, they're eating their meals and snacks on time. Don't try to rush. I know that we have busy lives, we have things going on. Oh, you've got to get this person to soccer practice, you got to get them here, you got to get them there, right? So avoid eating in a hurry. Try to give yourself at least enough time to have those meals together. Try to get fruits and vegetables in your teen diets. I honestly try smoothies. That's how I will get my kids to eat things that maybe they wouldn't eat by themselves, like this. Putting spinach in smoothies is something that's really helpful because you don't really taste it. The fruit and that kind of stuff will kind of take that taste away. And so trying things like that. I feel like there's been so many new like smoothie recipes and stuff like that. So that's definitely a good and fun way to even get your kids involved and trying to get them more vegetables and fruit in their diet. Make sure your kids are drinking a lot of water. I think that we all probably struggle with this, but I think what's most helpful for me is to always just have a water bottle with me. Over winter break, I had like one of those like big water bottles and that I take into classrooms with me. And so I would put water in there. And I told my husband, I was like, I realize I'm drinking a lot more water when I have this with me versus when I have just like a water bottle. Because when I have a water bottle, my kids will see it and they're like, oh my God, give me some, right? And so figuring out what is a way that I can get my kid to maybe drink some more water and stuff like that. Talk to your doctors if your kid is interested in gaining or losing weight so they can learn healthy ways to do this. Because a lot of kids, when they're struggling with weight, sometimes you want to gain weight, sometimes you want to lose it. We want them to figure out what are healthy ways to do this instead of finding those diets and all those fads and stuff on TikTok that they're going to try. And then go ahead.
I'm sorry, really quick. I'm just gonna say that I'm a huge advocate of family dinner. When I know it's difficult when you have several kids who are in several different activities, but we used to have a rule in our house. First of all, everyone came to the dinner table on Sunday. That was a given. And we tried to do a couple days during the week as well. And sometimes I would say to my kids, all I need is 15 minutes. I need everybody at this table for 15 minutes without phones. And I made them put the phone on the kitchen counter. And we sit for 15 minutes. We chat about our day. We grunt about our day, whatever it is. But I really feel like that is an important time. Even if you can't do it every day, set a couple days a week because that helps build connection as well.
Yeah. So. I love that. Incorporating physical activity into your daily life. Encourage your teens to go for a walk. Like I said, if it's something that, hey, you know what, before we do homework, let's go take a walk. Or, hey, you're done with your homework, let's go take a walk. It can also help them, again, learn that healthy coping skill and help them de-stress. Have them take your dog out for a walk. Maybe that can be their chore for the day or for the week or whatever to get them outside. Play some outdoor games or sports, jump on a trampoline, try to find something to just do outside. I feel like a lot of kids nowadays spend a lot of time inside their house, on their phones, playing video games and stuff like that. So get them involved in things that they're interested in, set those limits on video games, on screen time. Like, hey, I know you really want to play this video game, but let's at least go outside for 30 minutes. And then when we come back, you can play again or whatever. Try to set those limits on those things. So then that way they can get more active, they can go outside and things like that. And I think that when you are setting those boundaries, when you're setting those limits, it gets easier versus like, those first couple of times, there's probably going to be a lot of pushback, there's going to be grunting and moaning, I don't want to, I don't want to. But once it becomes like the norm, once it becomes a routine, once it becomes something that they're expected to do, it will get a little bit easier. And I know it's hard sometimes in like the winter months, especially to like go outside because it is cold, but even in summer when it's like super, super hot. And so think of things that they can still do outside or even to just get their bodies moving. So with healthy hygiene, We all just feel better when we feel clean. It helps us feel good about ourselves. When we're taking a shower or bath or just washing ourselves regularly, when we're brushing our teeth, making sure our teeth look nice, it's going to help us feel good. It also helps prevent illnesses and diseases. And so I think just healthy hygiene, I think sometimes with certain kids, that can be an issue, like they just don't feel like it. And that could also be a warning sign that, hey, maybe something is going on with my kid. Why are they feeling like they don't want to brush their teeth or they don't want to shower or this or that? What's going on? Why are they having those feelings? So sleep routine, with Mindy was saying earlier, I have noticed in our presentations that a lot of kids have been talking about sleep issues. And so I think it's definitely important. If you notice that your kid is having issues sleeping, then again, we go back to setting those boundaries, setting those limits. Hey, you know what? I've noticed you haven't been sleeping that great. I know you've been complaining about sleeping. How about we keep your phone out of your room during nighttime, during this certain time and stuff like that. So then that way they have a chance to go to sleep. Eating healthy and light before going to bed. Sometimes when people have like a big dinner or something really heavy and they don't have time to digest, it can make it hard to go to sleep. So think about when your kids were little, you kind of had a routine, right? You gave them a bath, you might have read to them, all those kind of things. And so we kind of have to sometimes go back to that and make that routine. Okay, I'm gonna take a bath before bed. That's gonna help me calm down. I'm gonna drink some tea. I'm gonna read instead of watching TikTok videos on my phone. Listen to some relaxing music, try to go to bed at the same time. Again, that can be sometimes hard, especially if you're having a million things to do throughout the week and you're trying to get this person here, trying to get that person there. Trying to make sure that they're turning off the computer, television, video games at least 30 minutes before bed. Because our brains are still kind of going and going and going. And so if you're staring at that screen, it can keep your brain going and going and going. And I will tell you, as these kids become older, that stuff's just going to get worse. So if we can show them, hey, you know what, that's not really healthy for you. We need to set up a routine 30 minutes before bed. Let's do something else. Let's do something relaxing to help relax your eyes, to help relax your mind. Because when you think about it, these kids aren't only looking at their phones all day, but when they're at school, they're also using laptops and computers all day. I go into so many schools and kids literally don't have a pencil. I'm like, how do you guys not have a pencil? And the teachers are like, well, most of the stuff that we do is on the computer. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because everybody has a computer. But I'm just like, dang, like you guys are on the computer all day and then on your phones when you come home. So it's a lot of screen time sometimes for some of these kids. And so making them get off 30 minutes before bed and stuff can definitely help them and their brains kind of calm down. And also setting up that routine is going to help prevent things like insomnia or feeling overly tired. There are studies that have shown that kids who regularly get an adequate amount of sleep have improved attention, behavior, learning, memory, and just overall mental and physical health. So sleep is a really big deal.
Yep.
Anything else you want to have about sleep?
It's just a really big deal.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. And honestly, I feel like I used to work at a health center and I had so many adults that also had problems with sleeping. And so I would give them a whole list of things to try to do before they go to sleep and stuff. And so sometimes those things helped and sometimes they didn't. And I'm like, you just have to keep trying and figuring out what's going to work best for you. Not for everybody, it's not going to be having a bath, right? For everybody, it's not going to be reading. And so figuring out what does work best for you. So learning positive ways to manage stress. So this is kind of where we go back to what we talked about earlier about learning those healthy coping skills, because stress can definitely lead to anxiety, withdrawal, aggression, illness, poor coping skills, such as drug and alcohol use. So a relaxation response includes decreasing the heart rate and breathing rate, a sense of well-being. They're going to develop that relaxation response and other stress management skills, and it's going to help them feel less helpless and have more choices when responding to stress. So they're going to know what are these ways that I can deal with these feelings, and that is going to help me relax. So again, when they go to practice those things, when you're showing them these things, it's definitely going to help them know, okay, when I'm stressed out about this, about that, what do I do in these situations? What have my parents done? Okay, I'll try that. Balancing work and play. Um, I think this kind of gets hard because you can't always dictate how much schoolwork the kids are going to get, right? And so sometimes that can be really hard to help and manage. But just kind of talking to your kids, hey, I noticed you've been super overwhelmed, that you've had a lot of stuff going on. Is there anything that is easy that's due at the end of the week that maybe we can just knock out today? And so maybe even just kind of looking over the week. So maybe Sundays, if you know your kids have like projects or anything, do that week or the next week, saying like, okay, what can we do for this project this week or today to help you not feel as stressed out. Planning your day, I think that's always helpful, just knowing what to expect. I think for all of us, when things happen unexpectedly, sometimes we're like, oh, what do I do in this situation? Asking for help when needed. So if they feel comfortable asking for help, is definitely gonna be helpful. Deal with those issues as they come up. Don't put things off, because the more you put things off, again, if I keep pouring water in my cup, it's going to overfill, right? Um, Exercising, getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, setting boundaries and saying no when needed is so huge and so important. I feel like there's so many times when kids feel like they can't say no, when they feel like, oh, I can't say no to this person, I can't say no, I don't want to do that to my parent or whoever. But letting them know, hey, you do have boundaries, you can say no, it's okay. And so I think that's important, even as kids, but as they grow up, as they get older, because I have found that those people who feel like they can't say no, they're saying yes to everything and everybody. And so as they get older, it's kind of like more and more weight is put on their shoulders. And so it gets harder to deal with all those yeses that you've said, because it gets tiring on you. And sometimes you don't want to do that, but you feel bad saying no. So setting boundaries is definitely helpful. Trying yoga and meditation, learning some deep breathing techniques. We definitely talk about these things in during presentations. And I always tell kids, I'm like, you know what? Try things that's new. Your meditation doesn't have to be your coping skill, but it's definitely something you can always try because maybe you do like it. So with the alcohol and smoking, teens tend to have they want to try smoking, they want to try alcohol, right? But these things can definitely impact their health. So definitely educate your teens about cigarettes and vaping and encourage them to stay away from those things, stay away from alcohol, talking to them about what are those risks. In our presentations, we do talk about substance abuse a little bit. That is a warning sign for depression, and it can be a warning sign for suicide as well. And I always tell kids, I'm like, you know what? I saw people who, started doing these things when they were younger to help them deal with these feelings that they had. And at the end of the day, it created more problems. It created issues in their family life, with their friends, with their significant other, work life. Sometimes it created issues with their job and even their housing situation. And so doing those things at a young age can definitely impact how you are going to respond to things as you get older, and how you are going to deal with those stressors. And I think that vaping is such an important thing to talk about, because I feel like these kids don't understand the extent of what vaping really does to our bodies. And I tell kids, I'm like, it's interesting to me, because I feel like they're so against cigarettes, but I'm like, vaping is the same thing. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, it is. It's worse, because I'm like, it's still all these chemicals going into your lungs and doing all these things. So it is bad. Like, and so I think just explaining to kids more about what that looks like. I actually had somebody tell me recently that a friend of theirs found one of those vape pens in their kids' stuff, and they talked to them about it, and the kid was like, I literally just bought that because there's so many people peer pressuring me to have one or to buy stuff from them, that I just bought one. So then when people ask me, I'm like, I have one. And so I was like, that's so interesting. That's crazy that it's getting to that point. And so I think it's definitely something we should talk to our kids about. Again, encourage them those positive ways to manage that stress. And then reach out to counseling programs and school about getting help with this. because a lot of times schools will have resources that maybe can help the kids with alcohol or smoking and things like that. And so getting them into counseling to learn about what are different ways to deal with these things instead of doing those things can definitely be a huge benefit, and use those resources. If you have them, use them, especially when they're free, use them. And then avoid spending hours online. So these things definitely make kids more vulnerable to internet addiction, and it can lead to all kinds of different impairments cognitively. It can also affect their eyes. Kids can be exposed to a lot of harmful messages when you watch TikTok, when you watch all these things. Sometimes it makes them feel more isolated. They might not want to be around other people because maybe they're so stuck in this online virtual world that they're focused in. So again, establish those boundaries and when screen time is. Hey, you know what? It's dinner time. We're not doing screen time. Make sure that your kids are watching age appropriate content, of course. Monitor their phones. I will tell you, I was talking to, I think, one of our coworkers, and they were saying like, oh the kids know how to get around some of these like parental blockers. And so it's so crazy to me because I'm like, we all, did stuff behind our parents' back and figured out ways to get around it. But like these kids are getting like so into it, and they're getting so like techy and stuff like that. And so definitely look into that and research those things so then you can kind of stay ahead of the game. And if you know somebody who's like maybe more advanced than you in technology, ask them about it too. Hey, what apps are you using to help monitor things on your kid's phone? Because I will tell you, these kids send a lot of stuff in Snapchat, and that stuff gets deleted. And I tell them sometimes when we go and talk about like peer pressure and bullying, I'm like, that stuff never gets deleted 100%. Like that stuff can always be found. We can't always see it, but if you get subpoenaed to court for bullying, for a bullying case, or a case where somebody encouraged someone to do suicide or anything like that, or those inappropriate pictures, you can go to court for that, and they can subpoena your phone, and Snapchat can send all those records to them. And the kids are always like, oh, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and when I'm like, your parents can also call the cell phone companies and ask them for those text messages. And they're like, what? Don't tell my parents that. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, because that's what happened before. I'm like, they have all that information saved somewhere. And so you can still figure out how to get that information. So if you're worried about, what your kids are sharing online and stuff like that, definitely figure out a way to kind of get around some of those things that maybe they're doing to hide stuff. But also, I think just keeping that open communication with your kids can also help them not want to hide all those things from you. Anything you want to add?
I will just say, yes, you're very correct about kids. I worked in a school prior to coming here, and the kids all had Chromebooks. And even though there was blocks on the school Chromebooks, the kids knew the ways around incognito. I don't even know. I can't even name incognito. I used to hear the kids talk about. They do definitely know. And the other thing is, a lot of these Instagram and Snapchat, they have age limits, but there's no way for the companies to check. So so it is really important that you're monitoring that.
And stuff. I think it's scary because I don't remember even where I was, but I remember we had talked about like how there are people out there that are going to share bad things with our kids, right? That want to make our kids have these certain feelings and go in these certain directions and stuff like that. And so we talked about, I don't remember where, we talked about how there are people that push kids to go on these certain websites that maybe encourage suicide and things like that. And so just being aware of what your kid is doing online, who they're talking to, is huge. Because again, we want to make sure our kids are safe. We want to make sure that they're okay. And you guys all know that. You guys all feel the same way. And so definitely sometimes we have to be the bad guy. Sometimes we have to say, hey, you know what, this isn't okay. This is why you can't talk to this person. This is why you can't do this. My cousin's little daughter, she is in first grade, and her mom asked her, like, who's this person that you added on Roblox? And she's like, oh, I don't know. She's like, I just added them so I knew how to add a friend. And so it's like something so innocent,
Yeah.
but like if she gets to a point where she can read, there's people on those things that like say really bad and mean things to kids. And so definitely be aware of who your kids are talking to, what they're saying, and let them know just the importance of all of that.
Got it. What?
You want to say this one?
Sure. Yeah. So we're gonna kind of wrap up and we'll give some time for questions. But before we do that, we always like to offer some resources to parents. Just some helpful numbers for you to connect to. So the first one I want to talk about is 988. I don't know if you have seen this yet. We show this to all of our students. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline used to be a 10-digit number. Somebody got smart and realized that if you're in a crisis, you can't think of 10 digits in a row. I can barely think of my name in a crisis. So they changed it nationwide to 988. The cool thing about it is it connects you to a local hotline. So if you or your child call this number, it will connect you to a hotline in St. Louis County, St. Charles County, so that if you do need resources or you need to be referred to a hospital, they'll be able to do that. As well, the crisis text line is a texting line. Here at CHADS Coalition, we don't have a hotline number, but we do offer individual and family therapy. If somebody should need to take advantage of that, absolutely reach out and contact us. RAIN is a hotline number that is geared towards victims of sexual violence. The Metro Trans Umbrella Group obviously is for that population. And then the Trevor Project is a hotline that is offered for the people who answer the phones there have been specifically trained in issues dealing with LGBTQ plus youth. And so that's also a possibility. So there's lots of options for you to take advantage of. We always recommend that if you suspect there is something going on with your kid, talk to your child's school. They're a great resource. Talk to your child's pediatrician. They're an awesome resource. So those are some possibilities. I had a kind of a cool experience yesterday. I was at a school, and when we do our presentations at the end, we do something called a BSAT, a brief suicide and depression screening. And it simply gives the kids an opportunity to talk with their counselor if they feel like they're in a crisis or they just want to talk more about mental health. And one of the young girls that I was a 7th grader said, these are the same questions that my doctor asked me when I went for my checkup. And so hopefully that is happening in terms of mental health. Those checks and assessments are happening when your child visits their doctor annually. So
I will say I've heard a lot of students say really good stuff about the Trevor Project. And so they're like, oh, the Trevor Project, I love them. And stuff like that. So I have heard that they are a really good resource. And sometimes when you talk to like your pediatrician and stuff like that, they can sometimes get you in sooner to like go see a counselor and stuff like that. And so you might call like yourself and they're like, oh, we can't see you for a month or 2 or 3 or whatever. And then when your pediatrician calls, they can kind of push that more ahead. And so definitely use your pediatrician as a good resource, but also your school counselors. Like Mindy said earlier, we have counselors who are in schools who see kids for free. There's also other agencies that might be in your kid's school who do not maybe the same exact work, but maybe their focus might be on a different type of mental health or a different type of issue. I used to work at Preferred Family Healthcare, and we talk to kids who are at risk of alcohol and drug use. And so we talk to those kids, and again, it was one-on-one counseling. And so your school might definitely have those kind of resources, but we don't always know that stuff unless we ask. So definitely use them as a good resource. And I encourage you guys to come back next month. We always have new topics that we talk about. And so you guys will all get an email from the recording of tonight's Zoom call. And then you can go on like our Instagram or even on our Facebook and see what are some other topics that might interest you that we talk about. Or even if you have a suggestion on something that you would want us to cover or talk about, you can also let us know that. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything you want to share or ask?
Okay. If nobody has questions, the topic for next month, we'll be talking about mental health in the Black community and the challenges, some of the issues that go along with that. So if you are interested, we invite you to join us. And if not, maybe you know somebody who might be interested. That would be awesome. If at any time, this happens to me all the time, I get off the call or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I wanted to ask this question. You could always call our office and somebody can connect you to us or somebody else within our organization. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be on the call tonight. And we look forward to seeing you next month, hopefully.
And we have them until June.
Through June.
Mm-hmm. And then we start back again in August. So July is the only month that we won't have anything. So Come back. We would love to have you guys. And if you have any questions, like Mindy said, just reach out, let us know. And like I said, you guys will get a recording of this, so you guys can kind of refer back to it and stuff like that. And then if you need more resources and stuff, please reach out. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
I hope you guys have a good evening.
Happy New Year to everyone. I know we're 10 days in. Is it still okay to say that?
Yeah.
There we go.